Practicing. See, there you
Yay!
go.
Yay, there we are. Boy, if you folks, you should have seen the start of the show. It was amazing. And
Yeah.
if I'm left speechless.
Speechless. Yeah.
See?
Me
Anyway.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be the
Okay. So
day.
anyway, I told you we're
Very
practicing. I
cold dandy,
said we were
Dan.
practicing. Damn it. All right. So I kind of changed things up just a little bit, and I said we're going to do a writers' roundtable. So, meaning whatever subjects we've got, we're going to throw them at you. Whatever subject you've got, throw them at us. We'll answer your questions. We'll figure this out, and I'll keep going here. Like I'm trying to read the comments and get going here. Carl, did you want to start with the subject?
Yeah. Uh, what do people do when you just have too many ideas at once? Okay. I mean, you could sit there for a while and not have any ideas, and then all of a sudden you'll have five of them. What do you do to choose? What do you do with
Mm-hmm.
those ideas you're not going to use?
I feel your pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that one hits home.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel targeted.
it
I
really
will.
does. What
You too.
I do, and it's not a hard and fast recommendation. What I do is I make copious notes on each idea,
Mhm.
and the one that seems to be percolating the best is the one that I start working on. And when I get stalled out, I go to the next one that's the most exciting, and continue on, bounce back and forth until I get something finished.
Okay, but
That's
let's say you have five ideas, and that one that's the most or the best that you like. What happens to those other four while you're working on that first one?
They sit in the back of my mind.
Okay, so you don't put them in a document. You don't, you
Yeah,
know.
I do, I do,
Oh,
I
do
do,
you? Okay,
to make sure I don't forget them.
that would
But
be me. Yeah.
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 yeah,
Because
but
that's what
they,
I'm doing too, Dan, and that's what I wanted if people did different things too. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've opened different files for each one. Put down what I've got, and then work on the one that seems to be flowing the best or the most exciting to work on. And then in the back of my mind, where it's out of the way, there's a little cabinet back there with not with padlocks on the doors, but chains and adamantium reinforcement and stuff that where it just kind of bubbles and ferments, and sooner or later it comes out. Um,
geez.
sometimes years later.
Yeah.
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 I need to do something with these.
Yeah. Well, what I do is very similar to Dan. I first of all I make sure it gets written down.
Hmm.
Mostly because I learned in college that when you go through the physical act of writing, you retain it better. That's why note takers tend to do better in a lot of classes than people who don't take notes.
Mhm.
And then from there, I keep, I have like, this is not the one, but I have another notebook where I am keeping these various ideas for different stories. Now, in the case of whether I have five or not, um, since I do a lot of work for other publishers, not just Rising Tide. Hashtag always promote. I have to prioritize based on the needs of the people that are employing me. So, like, if somebody else says, Brian, I need this horror story from you. Okay, I concentrate on that one, although I may dabble on some of other things, like if I get ideas how to fill out the plot idea or elements that I want to put in there. Because most of my stuff comes to me in the form of like elevator pitches, because
Mhm.
that's how I think in terms of presenting a story to other editors. And so I tend to kind of prioritize um, if somebody needs a story from me, and then I give that more of my moxie than I do my other things, which are probably more personal. But if they're all for me, then I do like Dan does. I just figure out which one speaks to me, which one I think I could get done the quickest, um, And plus, it helps. I have a Patreon page. Like right now, I'm serializing a new novel that I'm writing, so that gets like a certain amount of attention every month too. So it's a constant juggling act. It's like any other job where you have 5 or 6 things to do, but you have to figure out which is the highest priority. Kind of like being a chef in a nice restaurant. Do you start the French fries first? Do you start the filet mignon first? It's you just have to decide for yourself which has to have the higher priority.
Yeah, I think some people, when they're first starting out, or maybe just because of their personality, they will flip from idea to idea without getting any further on any of them.
Yeah, and that's a
And I was
danger.
talking to somebody the other day that was kind of like that. No, not you, Michaela.
No, but I am terrible about. I've got 20 ideas percolating, and none of them are doing anything.
Yeah,
Carl
but
is
Yeah.
only talking about people that wear fezzes.
Okay.
Okay, so not you, dear.
I need to go change my hat.
Yeah.
I don't even think that person is even in the room.
Right, but many of us are like that. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, for
Mhm.
sure.
And they're not in the chat either. So
Well, Joe Bachman says he tends to start with the one that should be the easiest. I don't think that's just a coding standpoint.
Yeah, it definitely is for writing too. Because if you think, okay, this one's for me. This one's a novella, or this one's an article for my outdoor magazine.
Yeah.
It's 1,200 words maximum, so I can knock that out no problem. Okay, I'll write that,
That's
get it out of the way,
that's
get it
where-
off my plate, and then I can
Mhm.
focus on the big stuff.
Mhm.
that's where I have a problem because I think in narrative hooks when a story comes to me.
Mhm.
I get the first line,
Okay.
and if the first line grabs me, I know, hey, this one wants to be written. Let's see what happens with it. Let me cogitate. Let me put the little gray cells together and get them to battling among themselves and see which one wins. But it all comes out to and Rich can testify. Some of my narrative hooks I will write down and put online if there's something that is not shouting for my attention. And
Right.
he grabbed one and he's writing a story around it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
yeah.
And yes, Google on your phone is amazing. I didn't realize how great it is, but yeah, if I'm stuck and I don't have my laptop, and just recently I've been taking care of a friend who I have to take to doctor's appointments. So there's a lot of downtime, there's a lot of wait time. So if I can have that document on my phone, granted it's not the best, but it's on my phone. I can read it, I can edit for the most part, look at it and go, okay, I know what I need to fix when I get home. Because editing on your phone is a pain in the rear end. But
Yeah.
I can at least look at it, I can at least read it and get a feel for it.
Yeah.
And you can also make notes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go with the physical files, and within, I've got the little notes that go with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
See,
Yeah, mine
I
was
And
used
then
to
I
do
go from
that
file
too.
folder to file folder.
I used to do that too with file folders back
Yeah.
when I, had an actual job and had a place to file things. And now it's like, yeah, whatever. They're on little notes all over the place,
little
Yeah.
post-it
Yeah.
notes everywhere.
Yeah.
which
And
is
it-
bad. It's really bad.
It's amazing what story ideas you can actually contain in some little pen and ink sketch that took like 5 minutes for just an illo, and it's like a mnemonic. You look at that little picture that you doodled, and the story is there,
Yeah.
and eventually it'll come up. It's just
Hi, Ace. Thanks for
it doesn't
tuning in.
always work.
Listening
Hey, Ace.
workspace.
Yeah, listening is just fine.
Oh
I
yeah.
would make it worth it, but this is not that show. Listening can be fun.
I believe in that context, listening would include a little bit more than the internet can provide.
Can handle,
Earbuds,
yeah.
baby, earbuds.
Yeah, earbuds. There you go.
More like a stethoscope.
And see, we've already gone off the rails.
Oh, okay.
No, we
I
haven't.
didn't
No,
do
we
it.
haven't.
Not really.
We're
no.
giving people lots of ideas.
There you go. Story ideas. Yes.
I didn't say there were story ideas, just lots of ideas.
And they're not always good ones, but they're
Yeah.
ideas. Yeah.
What was that other thing you had, Carl?
Um, Using different styles. Okay, because
Mhm.
Michaela and I had a discussion about this earlier. She's got her historical, and she's got a modern setting.
Yeah.
And I noticed that her writing style is so different in those. You could almost think two different people wrote those books.
Because for me, when I'm writing historical, I need to write the way they would have spoke, the way they would have thought of the world, because it immerses the reader in it. So if I'm writing historical and they say something like, they're using contractions, they're using words that we would use, it doesn't fit. Like they wouldn't have said.
Yeah,
So
it would
even
pull
something
it
as
would
simple
pull the
as-
reader out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's
Even something as
anachronistic.
simple
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
dinner is
Sure.
at 5 o'clock. We'd say dinner is at 5.
Mm-hmm.
End of story.
Mhm.
They
Well-
wouldn't say that. They would have said dinner is at 5 o'clock,
Yes.
depending on what time period you're in.
Right.
Mhm.
That's true.
Or
Some of them wouldn't have said that. Some of them would have said dinner is at dark.
dinner is at sundown. Yes, that
Yeah.
was exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I noticed even within that,
After evening vespers.
you had used complete sentences in the medieval setting.
Hmm.
Okay, and your modern person would think in fragments.
Mhm.
Another morning, whereas you in the other one, your style is totally different. It's like she looked out and groaned. I see it as another morning. You know, it was much
Right.
more.
It's much more lengthy because that's the way they thought. That's the way they wrote, if they wrote at all.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's, I think, another way that when I write the modern stuff, I can write it a lot faster. I don't have to think of how would they have said it? How would they have thought about that situation? Because
Yeah, I
it's
had
even
the
even that, because something that you and I are not offended by, like the way a woman dresses. If a guy back then saw the way women dress now, he would be like taken aback. Like, wait a minute, this isn't right. This is weird. Even the way the men dress these days, as compared to what he's used to, it
Yeah.
would be weird to him.
Yeah,
and he wouldn't know
Why
what.
is that guy wearing flat shoes instead of the high heels to keep him above the mud in the Venice streets?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It all depends on what you're writing. So when I write modern, I can fly. I don't have to think about it. It is what I know. It is what I live. So I can write. And that's where that word count thing comes in again. If I'm writing modern, I can write 5,000 words a day. Easy. If I'm writing historical, sometimes 5,000 words a day is easy. It depends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the same problem when I wrote Dragons and Wizards. I had to write what was being said, but then I had to go back and every
Sorry,
time
White kid.
every time
Those are the rails? Oh.
the person's had a to be word like are is, I had to change it just to be instead of what are you doing, what be you doing,
Hmm.
and I had to change use to ye. And
Yeah. It's definitely different when you're writing historical.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I like it because I like historical stuff. I'm a history nutcase. So I love to write it. Not everybody does. But
Yeah.
when you are also like me and you know your history and you like history, if you read a book, even if it's a romance novel, and something about it catches you, it pulls you completely out of the story.
Right.
That's why it's so important to get those details right. Because even something as simple as the way they speak, the clothing they wear, or like I call my stories medieval, and people are like, they're not really yet into the medieval stuff. They're kind of a little bit before.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, but I didn't nail down anything. There are no details in those books that you can nail down and say, ooh, they wouldn't have used forks until whenever, you know.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's an important part, and I'm doing a lot of editing right now. I'm finding myself, and I find that using anachronistic language, even in the narrative, pulls me out of the thing. Like I recently edited a western where somebody was comparing the vista to something you'd see on a television screen, and it's like,
Oh.
no, that would not fit this milieu.
Oh, no.
I wouldn't try to emulate the type of language that, like, say, a dime novel would have used, for this particular era. But by the same token, I don't want to put in anything like, his gun sound, his Colt 45 sounded like the retort of a laser pistol. That's just the sort of thing that confuses the reader. But it's so easy to do because we're putting it in a context that we understand contemporarily.
Yes.
But it pulls you out if you're doing something set in, say, the Hyborian age or the time of Christ or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of using the something I saw on a TV screen thing, if it had been me, I would have said something that I had seen in a Saturday movie serial
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. That would throw it back to about the 40s.
Yeah. It'd be better, closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it still wouldn't be perfect. Or a magic lantern show at a carnival. There you go. That can go way back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I could see using like a magic lantern or any of those kind of descriptions, like from the past in the present,
Yeah.
to give context. But I can't see it the opposite way. Using stuff from the future as far as the setting goes. Like I said, I find that in a number of people's stuff that I'm editing right now, and that's why they get their homework back, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
King Arthur is not going to be worried about how to set the timer on his VCR.
Well,
That's true, because he's got TiVo, so he's okay.
well, in one of the pieces that I edited, there was a snake bite mentioned. And then they went and got anti-venom. Well,
Yes,
the
I
time
remember
period
that.
didn't fit because I had to look it up because I didn't even know.
Yeah.
When was anti-venom made? Well, then we have another twist. We're in the hills of Appalachia.
Mhm.
People are poor, and
Mhm.
people can't go get it from the dime store.
No.
So now we have to back the story up and go, okay, well, if he was bit by a snake, there's no way that it had to be a poisonous snake if he lived. Because they could not have gotten the anti-venom. Whether it be they couldn't have afforded it or they couldn't have gotten it. It was not in existence.
Right.
Yep.
Now, if you change the date of your story, that fits. That works on one count.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, so historical, it slows me down huge because I got to look that stuff up.
Yeah, quick fix. Have it be a non-venomous snake and he got an infection, and there's plenty of hydrogen peroxide or Clorox
Right.
or
Something simple,
some
even
some
be
sort
an
of
herbal remedy
yeah,
of some sort.
something made from
use.
potash and lime or whatever,
Yeah.
Or distilled.
Just call it a poultice and be done with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read romance novels that got way into the poultices and the herbs that were used for different things and medical things, and it was neat to me to read it. But I bet you if I went back and read that book again, I'd be like, you could take all of this stuff out and the story is still good.
Well, that's where somebody did a crap ton of research and is bound and determined to strap you in a chair and make you learn it too, because why should they suffer alone? Yeah, I get that.
Either that or they've got some herbalist manuals and they just really love them and learned it all, and they think everybody else has too.
Sure.
Now they can take it off their taxes.
This will be fascinating to read about, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to change styles in writing because when I was in school and after, I had to write some scientific papers. And
That stopped the
from
whole
the
room.
Was that rehearsed or what?
with the annotations, with the footnotes, with
Oh yeah.
bibliography, with everything, and without any humor, which was killing me.
I was going to say, for you, that's hard.
Yeah. So I found that I had to imagine myself being almost somebody else. Scientist
Mhm.
Carl wrote those papers.
Yeah.
And then humorist Carl wrote this other stuff over here. And I could do it at the same time if I would get out of the headspace of one Carl and into the headspace of the other. Which, when you work in psychology, is kind of scary, but okay, it works.
Yeah. I can even take it a step further. And I was working at a job that I didn't necessarily like parts of the job. And one of the higher up managers, like way higher than me, sat down with me and she says, I don't like all the parts of my job either, but sometimes we have to put on a different hat and we have to be a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, shit, that's it. That's the key. I don't have to like it. I just have to do it for this portion of my day
Mm-hmm.
or this day of the week, and then I can take that hat off when I get off work and I can be somebody completely different.
Mhm.
I kind of do that with the Michaela Jade thing. I kind of do the whole, okay, Michaela Jade is the author, Michaela Jade is the person that can do Tidbits and Scribbles.
Mhm.
My other persona, that's my downtime. That's I'm not on camera. I'm not on Gilligan's Island.
Okay,
Okay.
fine.
Now we're all changing hats. Oh no, here we go.
Oh.
I don't know if that excites
No,
you.
that's a good idea, though. That gives you a prop almost to
Mhm.
move your mind into a different.
It
know,
absolutely
Oh,
does.
no.
state,
And that's one thing that over here Rich has got.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a scent can be
Oh,
helpful as well.
okay.
For me, it's sound. It's not so much scent, but sound. If I have the right music playing in the background,
Yeah.
I get into that headspace.
Yeah.
And yeah, for my medieval stuff, it's medieval songs, but it's instrumentals. I can't listen to words because then I'll start singing
Mhm.
along.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. It's like I wrote a romance story for a mutual friend about 3 weeks ago, and it wound up being a parody of a romance story. And I found myself slipping into the same style of writing as Santa Stein,
Mhm.
which was parody, which is an odd duck indeed, kind of semi-formal, but with jokes in it and everything. And I found myself listening to a lot of artists who had good wordplay, like Ghost. Sure they got a Satanic Panic going, but they have some really incredibly complex lyrics. Old things like Leonard Cohen, things like that. People with a really good command of the language to get me into that headspace where I knew I'm going to have to use every word in my arsenal to make this thing come across. So yeah, I understand that. And I know was it Jenna Morisi did a video on her use of music. And when she was writing one of her Savior's books, I think the first one, Savior's Champion, she said, well, I was listening, when I get into the fight scene, I play music to get me in the mood, and then it was Let the Bodies Hit the Floor.
Hit the floor. Yep.
Yeah, so, which is a good song for that.
It is.
So.
And that's the thing. Like, if music is what puts you in the right headspace, use it.
Yeah.
If it's a scent.
Serious.
If you have to light candles and your room has to have a crackling fireplace, and if it's ambiance, use the ambiance. If it's you need to go to a bookstore and sit there and type in the corner, do that. Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
On Nevermind the Furthermore this morning, they were talking about this as well, and Nick was bringing up some YouTube videos that were. You have a little scene on the thing. It doesn't change much, but it's like inside a bookstore or a coffee shop, and then you'll hear rain in the background and perhaps a tinkling piano.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that maybe somebody's
Yes, Pop.
changing
Drinking
poses,
still.
and
Hey, Pops.
and those those really did help.
Yeah, yeah,
Trying.
they absolutely do.
Yeah,
Because, like
yeah.
I said, if I'm writing a fight scene in one of my historical medieval stuff, I need a different mindset than I do if I'm writing my westerns and it's modern and there's guns being used, or there's a truck or a car involved. I need
Yeah.
something different. So a truck or a car, I'm going to think modern music. It's going to get me in that mood of let's cruise down the road, or let's go real fast down the road because we're being chased. It's different. It's yeah, you definitely have to be in the right headspace for the right scene.
Hmm.
And if you're not, your readers can tell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You might slip into an anachronism and not even know it.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Which is why we
And-
editors get the big money.
Mm.
CromCon this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coolness.
Well, and also too, if you do write in more than one style, you could slip
Mhm.
into the wrong style in the wrong book. If you're working on two at the same time, especially, that would be
Yeah.
difficult, to keep them completely free of each other.
Well,
It depends. It depends on your narrator's voice. Sometimes it's really easy because you've made them so drastically different.
Well, and that's what I was just thinking with mine, because it's medieval or before medieval times, historical, and then I've got modern Western that I'm working on. Now, you might, like Carl said, you might catch something, but so far I have not. And what it's doing for me is, if I get tired of the warriors and the elite warriors in their realm, I'm like, the story's not really coming together for me. I think I'm tired of it. Then I pop over to the Western stuff and I take off and I can fly with my writing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to go, holy crap, I'm a little burned out on the warrior stuff and the elite stuff. Let me try something different. And because it is so different, it gives me a break from this. And even though I'm still writing, I have a break from, I got to think historical, I got to think of how they would have talked, I got to think how they would have dressed. I don't have to think on this one. I can just write it.
That's what I was doing when I was doing the spy stories and the fantasy story at the same time. Whenever I wrote myself into a corner on one, I'd hop over to the other and change gears and
Right.
basically adopt an entirely different mindset and run with it as long as that. And then when I wrote myself into a corner there, I could jump back over to the other one and switch gears again and pick it up. And hopefully there wasn't any crosstalk, there wasn't any confusion between
Yeah.
the two voices, which is why I try and make my narrators in different genres sound differently.
Now, I have a question, since we're not getting a lot of questions in our comments here. I just came across the hiccup, I guess you could call it, in my story that I'm getting ready to publish. The main character female had the name Jessie. It wasn't clicking. I didn't know why. It just wasn't snapping. Like I could write the story, yes, I could write the story really well, but I didn't feel it. The emotions weren't there, the story wasn't really there. And then I changed her name. And I'll be damned if it didn't work. I started flying through the words, the emotions were coming. So have you ever had that happen where you change the name of a character and the story finally fits together?
Yeah, it happens most frequently when you're the kind of writer where the characters are telling you what they're doing and what they're seeing,
Yeah.
and you take dictation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you haven't properly identified them in your mind, it can get a little bit blurry, and you can jump and go, "Oh, wait a minute!
Yeah.
This guy's not going to light a cigarette. He's back in the Middle Ages."
Well, and it
You
was
know?
even like, I could write the story, but it felt more like an outline. There was no emotion, there was no feeling. It was just like, she went here and she did this and that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was it. And then I changed her name and it was like, well, she would have more emotion in this scene, or he would be pissed if that happened. Like,
Yeah,
the
they start
emotion
talking
wasn't
to you.
there.
You're showing them
Mhm.
respect. They
Yeah.
start talking to you again.
Yeah, it was just the
Yeah.
weirdest thing. And like I said, as soon as I changed her name, the story snapped together. I was like, well, fudge.
Well, one thing I've had in the past is where somebody might be behaving in such a way that he's a Dave, but later on in another setting he's David. You know, and I don't want that confusion in the
Yeah.
reader, so that's why I tend to write down all my names
Mhm.
and make sure that I use the same naming convention consistently throughout the work. But a lot of the name stuff I work out beforehand. And my more original stuff, like Angelique is the first name of Volcana, her civilian identity, and it took me a long time to come up with that name. I wanted something just a little bit different,
Right?
but kind of you know
Yeah.
just one of those names that you wouldn't catch anybody in the last 30 years naming their child unless you want them getting beat up, that sort of thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
And that's the thing, it
Yeah.
had to fit.
yeah, it does, and
Yeah.
for her it does.
I had to make a note because there were so many characters in the Madagascar cheerleader
Hmm.
available on Lulu. Uh,
Hashtag always promote.
and but there were so many characters I had to make notes of them and their last names and their husband's name.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, the
that.
women and their husband, because I had to match them up later because they appeared in scenes together again.
Mhm.
Who imagines that, right? And
Oh,
the
yeah.
color of their frickin' underwear, because that's important to the story.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
won't say why, but
Once I got into the third book of the Hunter's Ridge series, I was having problems with names, and there were a lot of characters. I had a whole police force to deal with, plus a town.
yeah,
So I finally went back and reread the first book and just made, okay, this person appeared in the first book. If I had given a description of him, I had wrote that description down.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
And
Oh my word,
I
yes.
even did like Mabel's Tuesday special is this,
Oh.
because I
okay.
found out I had changed it from the second book to the third one.
Oh crap. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yep. Sometimes you do need
yeah.
to make note of the hair color, eye color, left-handedness, right-handedness,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
accent they have.
what
Um,
kind of store is in
Yeah.
the town that
Um,
they've
you
been to?
can pull up, I think, on Google and pull up a character manifesto,
Yes. Yes.
and you can fill all that stuff out, like even their favorite candy. Like you can put everything down. Like, now, granted, for my characters, you're not going to have that.
Hmm.
But you can write down favorite foods, favorite coffee place, everything.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, put it in your little notebook, and there you go. And if you're writing a
Mhm.
series, I highly recommend it. Because, you
Yeah.
won't remember, does Keith have blue eyes or green eyes? I don't remember.
that did come in
Exactly, yeah.
handy in Woodstock, didn't it, dear?
Yes, it did.
We did interviews of each other, pretending to be the character.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very
And
cool.
so Donna would say, "Okay, what would Dwight say in this situation, and what does he think about this?" And I'd give a whatever,
Mhm.
and then she'd do the same thing, back and forth, and then
Well, actually,
Yeah.
I think I interviewed Michelle. Michelle interviewed you, and you interviewed me with the same amount. And some of those interviews actually made it into Woodstock,
Yeah.
also available on Lulu. But yeah, with every Hunter's Ridge book I have, I add to my list as to the new people who have come in, the new stores who have come in. And why the hell I'm putting a new mall in, I don't know, but they're coming into the 20th century. What can I say?
I have found one useful shortcut that I started off using is to mentally cast the characters with
Mm-hmm.
actors that I know and characters they have portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
I get the physical appearance down as well as the mannerisms and the accent, the speaking accent and things like that from that actor playing that character at that time
That
in this
helps.
movie.
Yeah.
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 And it's kind of a crutch. It really is, but it worked for me.
It works, you know.
I do
Yeah.
that too. Yeah. Skyman is Gary Cooper. Claudette Colbert is his lady friend.
Okay.
Especially if you have actors that seem to specialize in a certain type of role.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And Claudette Colbert is usually kind of feisty.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. There we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, there
Yeah.
are.
Yeah,
Yep.
and what I do for mine, I've started doing. It's
Yeah.
a little complex, but as I go through each chapter, I summarize. I have a file where I summarize each chapter. I tell myself who appears in each chapter, and
Oh, that feels like outlining. Ew.
it is very outlining. And I also include.
Now you've made her feel dirty.
Then my job here is done.
But you know, if Brian ever decided to make that into a screenplay,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got
those
all the details
elements
right
help
there.
the director
Oh
right
yeah.
there.
Or
That's your shooting script.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was very inspired by an old comic book series called The Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe, where they would have like all the stats of the various characters from Marvel, along with a very detailed history of that character's life. And so, like, I currently I'm editing The Terrors. I know what my protagonist. I know what black college he went to. I know where he grew up. I know the names of his parents. I know who the two previous owners of his pharmacy were. And it may never be used.
Yes.
Or it may come out like half a dozen books from now where I'm thinking, you know, that I need that fact in there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's for me as much as anyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. I was just about to comment on that. I have done that on
Yeah.
several occasions. There's one character in my Spaceport Bar series. He looks like Ed Bishop from UFO and
Yes. Yes.
the marionette from Captain Scarlet, but he sounds like Tony J.
Ooh. What a voice.
Yes.
Good
That.
choice.
I'm
Yep.
gonna date myself here. But my character in the very first book, Warrior Secret, had a little bit of Goliath from Gargoyles, the cartoon series that they only ran 2 seasons of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good one.
Goliath
Good
was
choice.
my jam, and that deep voice.
Uh-huh.
Oh yes.
Of that-
Deep voices
of that
always
actor.
do it.
So then,
Oh, I
Yeah.
can see.
I
After
have
having
come
read
to
it, I can see
appreciate
how that worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
they
works.
tell you never meet your heroes. Don't do that. Because I've seen the guy that does the voice, and I'm like, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit.
I'll
It is
tell you.
such a contrast because he's very slender, and how do I describe him? He's not what I pictured for Goliath. I pictured someone like Samuel L. Jackson
Hmm.
as Goliath with a deep, rich voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not someone who's 6'5" and pale.
Idris Elba.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just didn't. And so when I saw the guy that does the voice, now I'm like, oh, that's wrong. That's just no.
Okay. I'll give you one. Now, the character, the voice actor for Beast in the X-Men animated series from the 90s
Mm-hmm.
was given a part in the first live-action X-Men movie.
Mhm.
And he was the truck driver that dropped Rogue off in the town in Alaska
Oh,
that
okay.
where she met Wolverine. Now, the difference between his voice in the cartoon and his appearance in the movie is quite a shock.
Yeah.
because you sit there and you imagine what the owner of that voice
That
would
voice.
look like,
Yeah.
and it's not an old truck driver.
Right. Yeah.
But
That's the thing. So Hawk was based off a little bit off of Goliath, and I ran with the story. And that baritone voice that man has really gets me. Like that was my emphasis. And when the publisher came out with the cover of Warrior Secret, my sister-in-law even said it. That's not what I pictured Hawk to look like.
mm,
It works. It works. I'll give you that. It works. But it's not. I pictured Hawk as more like Goliath, broader of shoulder, bigger in the chest, like a big dude. So
kind of
it
wedge
works.
shaped
Yes.
from the shoulders to the hips.
Yes. Like my favorite Doritos. Yes.
Yeah.
See now, Grant, I like you even more. See?
Good taste, Grant. Good taste.
Yeah. Well, BJ is off
Yes.
of three
Yes.
people.
Remember which way it is.
Naturally, the first one would be Bubba off of In the Heat of the Night. The second is an actual cop I know, and the third is sitting here with us.
Yeah. Yeah, see, now I got caught. Now Andy doesn't like it, but I'll say that there are
I
characters.
was nowhere near there when you were writing.
But yeah, there are characteristics of my husband in the books. And people are like,
Yeah.
how do you write such good male characters? I'm like, I live with one.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
I live with a male character.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the
I've
thing. Like,
actually met one or two, so
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is, some of these romance book writers that strictly write romance, their guys talk too much. They think too much. I
Yeah.
hate to say it, but they do. Like guys don't think. Back me up here. Like you're not going to put that much thought into some of these things. Like
We're not deep.
Just, yeah, she looks good.
Yeah.
Okay. You're
Well,
not going to put
yeah.
that much thought into the material of her skirt and the way the zipper sounds when it comes down. Like, really?
I
don't
might think
so.
about it, but I'm damn sure not going to talk about it.
Right. Right.
No, we don't.
Depends on what kind of bar I'm
Not
in.
a zipper. Like,
Yeah.
That's sensory input. That's not verbal output.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And it
Yeah.
doesn't go through your mind. Other things are going through your mind. You know, like it's not about the zipper or the
It-
buttons or the material of the dress.
It goes through your mind afterwards when you're rethinking the whole experience.
Ah,
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
It goes through your mind while you're having the experience. You're just not going to get distracted by it.
No, exactly.
Hey, stick to the business
no,
at
Grant, there are a
hand.
couple of-
Thank you,
there are-
Grant. Thank
There are
you.
a couple of
Thank
other
you.
things they need to do.
You know, guys will think about, the material of her skirt or the sound of the zipper when they're writing it up to the penthouse forum afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Once you get past, I never thought it would happen to me. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
oh, come on now. I can notice the perfume and whether or not
you do
the,
notice, but you don't
Oh,
talk
yes.
about it at the time.
yeah the lighting and
And
Right.
most of us are like, oh yeah, she had a pulse. I do remember that. Yeah.
Well, and
She
the
formed complex
Nerd.
sentences.
yeah, not that it mattered. Yeah.
medieval
Time.
times versus
Or-
modern times.
or if it's one of Donna's books, she still had a pulse at that time.
At the time.
There you go.
As I said, not that it would have mattered.
That was no.
I was going
Right.
to say.
Because some of the romance books, and I don't. It can even be a man wrote the book.
Hmm.
There
Chances
just
are it
way too
was.
way too much detail for the man to be thinking. It's like he's not going to overthink it like women are going to overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
So back up. You're writing a guy. Let it be a guy. So,
And it doesn't necessarily have to be a romance book.
right.
I love Robert B. Parker,
Hmm.
but there are a big part that I skip over because I don't need to know when he's looking at his Amora Susan, her perfectly pressed white button down shirt and this and this and this. I'm like, I don't need to know that. I don't need to know about her perfect pearl teeth.
Yeah. And also, another point to that is it slows the story down. Because, like you
Yeah.
said,
Mhm.
if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
reading it, you're going to
Yeah,
skip over
yeah.
it.
It's
If
an
you're
info
really into
dump.
that story,
Yeah.
you're going to skip over it.
Mhm.
Yeah, info dumps are really dangerous. I mean, you
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
you want to give all this detail because it's in your head, but
Yeah.
it's not necessary to the story most of the
Mhm.
time. Not
No.
not in that particular place. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a time and place for info dumps, and usually that's in conversation where you could, if
Yeah,
you can,
you can have two
if you
characters
can
have a
avoid the proverbial, as you know, Bob, and recap
Yeah.
from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sounds like a comic book then.
I kind of
Mhm.
handled that. I kind of handled that in the Mad Gasser by having those town meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
If there's information that needed to be passed, it would be during the town meeting.
Yeah,
So-
if you can do it in dialogue, that's one thing. If you're
Yeah.
doing it in an internal monologue,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's gonna
That's-
pull the reader out.
Yeah,
It
or
really is.
or just in passing, like one thing I find a lot of writers do that cross my desk is that they'll fall in love with their characters and the dialogue, but the characters are basically sitting with their arms at their sides, staring straight ahead into space and reciting dialogue, whereas. Like, all of us, we're nodding. I'm waving in my hands like I'm trying to bring in a jumbo jet onto the tarmac. We're all doing stuff.
Yeah.
Aside from that, and you can have some, like a character if you want to show that he's very, fashion conscious. He looks at himself in a mirror while he's talking, or he straightens his tie without, having to, or he adjusts his cuffs, that sort of thing. Just something to give you, yeah, exactly, Dan, and something to give an idea, an impression that's also visual
Mhm.
to the reader. That this is the quality this person possesses.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right,
and the
and that's
incongruity
what-
there is, I'm not going to worry about dust so much.
Well, that's true. That's
shirt,
true.
you know?
Well, you get some guy that like talks like he's a street brawler, and yet he's adjusting like his he's retying his his fancy $400 shoes, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But that's where you do it instead of saying, "Hey, I've got this thing. It isn't like the others. Hey, here's my info. My word
Yeah.
puke.
Right.
Mhm.
And
I think
go ahead, Donna.
I think that's probably true for a lot of people. I have been told I think a lot like a man, probably because I've been surrounded by.
That's what I was gonna say. When
Yeah.
you grow up like a tomboy, you kind of get used to it,
Yeah.
And I've said I'm a lesbian for years.
Cracking
So-
a guy's body. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
You poor
Screaming
thing.
to get out.
There's 3 different comments I'm willfully not commenting on.
I double dog dare you, Dan. Let's hear him. Let's hear him.
Not the green room.
This is not the green room.
Yeah.
You gotta
Bring the show to a halt right now.
Come on, I haven't been banned from YouTube yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today is that day.
One of the things we were talking about, basing your characters on actors and such. I mean, pulling them in to help keep the person in character. I kind of used real life people,
Mhm.
Mhm.
borrowed real life people. I thought,
Yeah.
okay, so Michelle is going to play the part of Jan, whatever,
Mhm.
and would pull those in and think, okay, now I know their personalities.
Yep.
I'll write them as such. Hopefully, they'll never recognize themselves in there. But also, you could put in pieces that would show parts of their personality that were important, but may not be shown in other ways. Like the Mad Gasser was very careful not to step on any of the crop as he was cutting through the soybean field. He did not want to step on some guys because he was a farmer himself.
Right. And it
He
was
would never step on another man's crop. He would break into a woman's house and knock her out, but he would never step on a soybean.
Yeah,
Right.
really. Never
Because
rub
it's-
another man's
yeah.
rhubarb. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
That was the kind of mentality I was trying to pull out of there.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it was.
And that's where we were just talking about. You can put stuff in. You don't have to do an info dump. You don't have to do a dialogue dump.
no, it's one little piece. It
Right.
tells
It's one
the
little
story.
piece that's
Just enough to
be
give it
very
some
careful not to
verisimilitude.
step on those crops. And it was because He was a farmer. That's important to a farmer. It's not important to a city slicker.
Right. And it's what you do, not what you say.
Mm-hmm.
So, if sometimes you can show things in an action that speaks louder than,
Mm-hmm.
the words that they're saying.
And if you've got all these details in your mind about this character, you don't have to throw them all in one paragraph. You can spread them out through a chapter or two.
Yes.
You know.
Or not even share them at all.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're dead set on the reveal, make it slow. Let it
Right.
build. Spread it out.
Right.
Well, and that's just like the story that I'm working on. The blurb is really getting me because I don't want the blurb to give away anything too quickly. There's information in the story that as you're going along, you're piecing it together and you're going, okay, now I know what happened back then when the story started.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give that away in the blurb. And one of the blurbs I wrote today gave it away. And I was like, oh, can't write that. Don't. Well, I can. I don't want to. I don't want to give it away.
Right.
So I have to go back and change a couple things. But it's kind of fun for me because then I can think it through and, be that wordsmith I know I can be. How do I grab the reader in that blurb and yet not give away the things I don't want to give away just yet?
Right.
And on the opposite side, how do you keep from being too subtle?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want the reader to know it, and if you're careless, you'll put it in such a way that it'll slip past them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to think like a mystery writer, and you've got to put this important thing right there
in front of them
and hope that you don't draw too much attention to it or too little attention to it
Mm-hmm.
in the same sentence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, writing is hard. This is not easy.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet it must be done.
Yes. Yeah, it would drive me crazy not to write.
Yeah.
That is my definition of a writer. Somebody that is voluntarily giving
crazy.
themselves a mental illness, which compels them
Pretty much.
to throw words at paper and convey the things that they see in their mind, so in such a way that it puts those visions in somebody else's mind
Yes.
just by reading little ink blots
Mm-hmm.
on pieces of a dead tree.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, Joe's
Oh.
leaving.
I've seen people do that before
See you,
too.
Joe.
They-
Take care, buddy.
Yep. Take care.
Well,
Be careful.
getting back to the blurbs that Michaela was talking about, there are some people in this industry that actually that's their specialty.
Yeah.
They don't write books, they don't write short stories, but they'll write a killer blurb for your book.
Oh, my
So,
God.
and I admit I agonize over that. For the same reasons you were talking about, Michaela. I don't want to give away too much, but I want to put in just enough to entice the reader into purchasing the book. So,
And yet some
Yeah.
blurbs just seem to write themselves.
Yes.
well, that's true. That's true.
Right.
This is true. It depends on
Mm-hmm.
if it's not your story.
Yes.
You're
I
reading
was just gonna
somebody
say
else's
that.
story, but your job is to write a blurb for it.
Yeah. Mhm.
Some of them, it's right there. It just kicks you in the teeth. That's the blurb you've got to use.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, you have to carefully plan how to hint
Mm-hmm.
at what the story is without giving anything away.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I
Well, it's
find it easier because I co-write a couple of different stories. And it's easier for me to help with the blurb on the co-written stuff
Mm.
than it is for my own because I'm not as in it. I can pull back and see the story. When I'm in it, I'm like, oh, I got to get this detail in and I got to get this detail in and how do I fit these two details together without giving them away? But I can do that.
You've already
inside
got
the story.
those. Those are already inside the book.
Yeah. Well, it's just like my latest book, Vacation, available on Lulu. If your childhood home wasn't good, don't go back for a vacation, especially if someone there wants you dead.
Yes.
I didn't even have to think about that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there was a romance writer, and God love it, I can't remember her name. I'll have to look it up. Her newest book that came out was, usually on a romance book you'll have his take on it and her take on it, and maybe a third paragraph of wrapping it all up. His take was, she's so gorgeous, she's so beautiful, she's going to be my queen, no other will do, this is going to happen. Her blurb, hold my beer. I'm like, she wins the internet. She wins the
perfect.
internet. She wins the books. She wins
Yes.
it all. That was perfect.
And that's where I'm whipping out my wallet saying, shut
Right.
up and take my money.
Exactly. I'm like, I need to read
That's
this
gorgeous.
book.
That's
I don't know
great.
what it's about. I don't care. I need to read this book now. Perfect. So
Yeah.
now I'm like, I need to be on that level. That is the level I want to reach.
Yes, exactly.
So we'll get there. We'll get there. We're just not yet.
Getting there.
Because we can't copy. Granted, it's a form of flattery, but I don't do that. But
This
we'll
is
get
true.
there.
This is true. I'm going to have to step away from. I'm going to have to go down the hall. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
Okay.
Okay.
See you in a minute.
Yeah, Rich, it is like fishing because
Yes.
you know,
Right.
you don't want to fill the fish with the bait.
Right.
You don't want them to just take a nibble and get away.
Yep.
You want that person invested enough by reading your blurb to say, yeah, okay, you know, it's only $10. I'll buy it. You know, whatever. And
Yeah.
Well, and as my medieval stuff goes, it gets let's just say darker, because I can't say it's more R-rated,
mhm,
because of course it's medieval times. The boys back then wouldn't know the things the boys now know to
right.
teach their women. So, or as we go these days, the women are teaching the boys.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
in the medieval times, I have to be careful of what I put in the bedroom scenes, we'll call them.
Mm.
Because yeah, there were things that they just didn't know back then, and that would pull the reader completely out. You know, no pun intended there, but I know, right? But
Wasn't
with
saying anything.
that's where the modern ones are a little bit more fun for me, because then I can add to the love scenes, and I can put a parental advisory sticker on them and say, no, these are not your mama's romance. Like, this ain't Hallmark. We ain't playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But that's the fun for me, because then I can take the modern ones and I can, you know, do a whole nother story, a whole nother series, a whole nother spinoff, whatever I want to do.
Right. That's true.
But yeah, the historic, and again, that's why the historical takes so long to write, is because you have to go, okay, what would they have known? What wouldn't they have known? Would they have said that in the bedroom? I bet they did.
But once you get past the fact they're all speaking English, it's all downhill
Yeah.
from there. So
Pretty much.
Well, and you've got sets of characters, Michaela, that some are kingly,
Uh-huh.
queenly,
Uh-huh.
and some are more like knights and might be a little rougher. They might say
Right.
things and do things that might not be seen in the king's chamber. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So and that's another hiccup to
dep-
write about. You know, it's okay. Hawk and Cassidy are king and queen. They're a little bit more proper, a little bit more polished. Maybe they wouldn't traverse into things that his right-hand man would, because his right-hand man has been at the taverns he didn't go to, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to figure it out, but I think the modern ones are even more fun because I can take them to places I'm familiar with.
Then again, there are the advertisements for the ladies at the bordellos in Pompeii, where
Right, right.
certain services are offered, and you have to
Oh,
go,
heck yeah.
wait a minute, that's what that is.
Well, and
Yeah.
if you look up when the book of Kama Sutra was written,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
got a copy right up there.
Stuff back
Hey,
then. Like, what? No.
we all got here somewhere. We didn't invent it.
Right.
That's
Mhm.
true.
You know.
There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, seriously, I doubt that there is anything that we do in the bedroom now that people in caves didn't do with a whole lot less privacy.
Oh yeah.
Right. But that's the thing you have to think about. You have to say, okay, if they would have known about it, they
Mhm.
probably would have referred to it as what?
Yeah.
Or,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
So he
Yeah.
would have been a little more, like, if he wanted to try something, he probably would have been a little more suave in the way he brought it to her. If he's a good guy, if he's a total jerk, he probably would have been like, bend over and take it.
Brace
Uh-huh.
yourself.
Hey,
Yeah, You gotta, you can
Yeah.
still write these really steamy love scenes, but you've got to write them just right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a
You
challenge.
got, that's like in the seduction of Lily Monroe that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Again, always again on Lulu.
Lulu.com.
Yes.
You guys are good.
He presents her with a Kama Sutra book.
There you go.
Thank you. And they call
Yeah.
and this is called Congress, which is what they
Yes,
called it.
that's the other
Oh,
thing.
That's
They
true.
didn't call it sex. They didn't call it lovemaking.
Although to look up the history of the F word,
Mhm.
that's been
Yeah.
around a lot longer than I thought.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Oh yeah.
hmm
The History Channel did a whole thing on it.
Yeah, I saw that. There's also a very entertaining Wikipedia entry on that too.
Yeah.
And you remember when you were a teenager and you were first experimenting with romance and serious romance? You thought you had invented everything.
Mhm.
Or
Then,
the first to try it, or
Mhm.
you know,
Then you come to find out that nah, some Roman did it, some Egyptian did it years ago.
Yeah.
Somebody back in the Middle East thought of this one. Somebody in India thought of this one, and they even did drawings,
yes,
instruction manuals.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
grief! Oh, look at the history of some of the shall we call them ladies in waiting at the Chinese emperor's courts various times,
Mhm.
Right.
or
That's
the
why
empress's courts. I
Right.
mean, there was some stuff going on back there that people would
well,
go.
and that's the other hiccup with writing it is some people were allowed to talk about it, some people weren't. And if you're writing kings and queens, they get away with a lot of stuff because they'll behead somebody that tells them not to. Like, that's a thing. That really was a thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But also, they could talk about it. Maybe you couldn't in your station.
You know,
or
something that was-
somebody of a higher station would talk about it more poetically,
Hi, Teresa.
whereas
Hi,
someone
Teresa.
from a
Hi,
lower
Teresa.
station would just
Right.
barge ahead like a farmer and go, "Hey, you remember?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that was brought up to me in a sociology class in college, and I had never really thought about it before.
Right.
But the commoner, okay, who's
Uh-huh.
living in that little thatch hut underneath the castle of your guys, okay,
Right.
they've got 7 kids
Uh-huh. They
In
know
one
what-
room.
in the
No
room, same
hobbies.
room, all in one room, and then they're going to make an 8th.
Yeah.
Okay?
hmm
You don't think those kids learn a lot?
Native
Right?
Americans.
You know?
Yeah.
It's one big teepee, and it might be grandma and grandpa live there too.
Yep. The Eskimos.
You know?
The people that were on the canal boats in England back in the 1800s. I mean, all they had is like a curtain separating them from their
Yeah.
previous 17 children.
Uh-huh. So yeah, the kids knew. Like, we shelter our kids these days, but and that's another thing. So
Well, I wish
Well,
my
I
mother
write-
had.
right, right, so I write romance, and it's one of those. Okay, well, granted, it's fantasy,
Mhm.
so I can play a little bit with things, but still there's the customs of the day.
Mhm.
It was commonplace to talk about it. It was commonplace for kids to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've even read some things that said that you didn't drink the water. Water was gross. Water would get you sick.
Mhm.
But little kids, like 3 and 4-year-olds, even younger, would drink what's called mead.
Mhm.
That's actually fermented fruit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Fermented
That's
honey,
alcohol.
yes.
Fermented
Like-
honey, yeah.
Yeah,
But it was filtered a lot better than the water.
bingo. It
Oh,
wouldn't,
yeah.
you know.
Yes, and honey is a natural antibiotic.
Right.
Right. Right.
So the right type of mead would be the kids get to drink this stuff. We'll drink the better stuff,
Mhm.
Mhm.
you know.
Oh, yeah.
But they weren't drinking water, I promise.
Oh yeah.
But God
Um,
forbid you say that these days. I'll give my kid mead. You know, whoops.
Here comes family
That's a different
services.
thing.
yeah, really.
Yeah.
We have
Winter-
we have a glorified view of childhood now.
mhm.
How we think it should go, but that's not how it's gone for ages. It's just a
Right.
modern invention that we've come up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I learned about was called winter wine,
Yeah.
where you've got a wine barrel, a cask of some kind, doesn't have to be huge, whatever. In the wintertime, the water froze and you chuck the ice out. The alcohol content got stronger.
Mm.
Every time you took the water out. You
Mm.
eventually wound up with something about like brandy or some of the really powerful stuff that we can go to a store and buy today that's made slightly differently, but it's with low tech. I mean, you just wait till the water freezes out, get rid of the water. That's the bad stuff there.
Yeah, Michaela's
That's-
Michaela's making a note for us.
I am.
Yeah.
Right? We'll do that
She's
later.
going down to Menards tomorrow and buy about 10 barrels, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm a giant suppository of knowledge.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a Star Trek blooper quote. Actually.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Okay.
And that actually happened to me. I was given a note by a secretary in an office. She said, "You need to call Brenda." And I'm like, "Okay." And I looked at the note, and it said, "Brenda wants to talk to you about a suppository." And I'm like, "Okay, sure. I don't know that right now."
Saves me $20 downtown.
She wanted to create a data repository.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but the secretary had written down suppository. I was like, "Yeah, whatever."
Oh, we were talking about my hiccup cures.
A whole different way today than yesterday.
Oh, yes. See, folks, we're talking dirty without you even knowing what we're saying.
They
Well, that's
know.
why nobody gets
They
there.
Yeah, I
know.
was gonna say
Yeah.
we're talking dirty
Oh.
without getting banned.
Yeah.
Well, the day is young.
It is. It is. I'm making sure we didn't miss anybody's questions or anything.
Yeah.
Did we need another topic?
Sure.
I've got one more I wanted to.
Okay. Let's
Okay.
go.
And it's died down, thank goodness. But for a long time, we were all posting, oh, I got this many words done and that many words done,
Yes.
especially during the November, when we're going to
Oh,
try
NaNoWriMo, yeah.
NaNoWriMo. And that's important because it keeps us motivated.
Right.
But you
Not all of us.
judge. Donna doesn't.
Donna, high
There's
five.
one in every audience, and Donna's ours.
Aunt Donna is like the honey badger.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I don't.
But you can't be judging yourself by how many words somebody else got, because as Michaela pointed out,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the words are flowing for you in one story that you're writing. Let's say it's a modern western. Okay, great. Boom, 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 boom.
Mhm.
And someone else is writing some historical spy novel. Okay, guys, again,
I
just saying,
resemble that remark.
okay. Me too. And you're not getting it because you had to go do some more research to figure out, this and that and the other. And
Did
so-
this word exist in the 1950s?
Right.
Yeah.
Did they even know what this meant?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a character who was going to learn German over the shortwave. Okay, but in the time period he was young enough to do this, there were no international shortwave broadcasts.
Yeah.
They hadn't started yet, so I had to figure out another way for him to do it. But it was like, oh man, okay, we're not getting any words written today. 400 words written that day,
Yeah,
And
really.
I want to say
but I
too,
got stuff done. So
some
don't. Yeah,
authors can write 8,000 words in an hour.
yeah,
So some can't
Mm,
write
Maybe.
8,000 words in a week.
right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not research. Sometimes it's simply you cannot write that fast.
Yeah.
Or life jumped in and you were on a roll and the phone rang. Or you're on a
Right.
roll and your little kid came in and it's lunchtime. You
Right.
know, don't beat yourself up because you didn't get as many words as your author friend got, or that author that you strive to be like, they got, X amount of words and you didn't even get 100.
yeah.
You got something. You sat down and tried. You sat at your computer, your laptop, whatever. Even if it was on your phone. I've even heard some writers will do it on their phone on a Google Doc.
Right.
If that's how you got to get the words down, get the words down. I don't care if it's 5 words a day.
Hmm.
As long as you're making progress, that's progress.
I
I'm not
do
even
know.
doing
I
that.
do know somebody that actually just takes a pen and a pad of paper,
Hmm.
and they will eventually type it up in a word processor. But they're more creative. They're more comfortable
Yeah.
with paper
Yeah.
and pen.
Every one of my
And I-
stories starts with paper and pen.
And I
And,
used to be that way.
And a lot of times it'll be if I'm at a show and there's not many customers walking through, or there's not any customers walking through yet. Like I'll get to a
Oh.
show, get set up, and we've still got a half hour before they open the doors.
Mhm.
I'm not sitting there staring off into space. I might have an idea. That's why I've always got a notepad. It goes right in that notepad. I get home, it goes on the computer.
Yeah.
You know.
And I don't do it to any of you guys or anybody that we like here.
Yes.
But-
understand.
Someone will say, I got 4,000 words done today. I'll say, yeah, 2,000 are crap.
Yeah, I usually wind up writing 2,000, editing out 1,900 of them. So yeah,
That's okay.
Oh,
hey, I'm still 100 ahead.
Yep.
yeah. It's more like 5,000 you edit out after writing 2,000.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a collection of these that go
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
several decades.
Mhm.
There's a complete novel inside this
Yeah.
thing, but it's just an outline.
Yep.
Mhm.
Just ideas, just thoughts, and
Yeah.
Every page of this turned into 4 pages of a real outline.
Mhm.
Every page of the real outline turned into 4 pages of actual dialogue and
Yeah.
scene setting and stuff
Right.
like that. And it was because my only free time to be creative was when I was at work and everything was going just fine and I was bored out of my mind.
Mhm.
And y'all know me, the way my mind works, if it's not got some sort of task it needs to perform to the exclusion of everything else,
Mhm.
there's going to be extraneous stuff that
Right.
if
right.
it's not written down,
Well,
it
even
vanishes into the ether.
even people like Stephen King will tell you, if you're stuck, go people watch.
Yeah.
Go to a mall, go to a park, go to a Barnes and Noble, go wherever. Just sit on a bench and watch people. Sit in your car and watch people. Watch
Mhm.
traffic. You will get an idea. I think it was Stephen King that said sometimes you're sitting there and you'll think, what if a zebra fucked a giraffe? Everybody in that room was they had their notebooks out, and he was like, here's how you get the ideas. And he's like, you start thinking, what if a zebra, he says, and I saw every one of them writing it down, what if a zebra? And then he goes, fuck the giraffe.
You get a copy.
Right, like, all of them just went, well, what, did he just say what I think? He said it.
And
Yes.
Michaela's now going to start writing her interspecies erotica
Talking about
now.
fantasy. Woo!
Yeah.
But no, that's the thing. The premise is just that ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
People watch the mom deal with those kids while she's trying to do her shopping. Watch the guy walking his dog. Why is he walking the dog? Is it his dog or the wife's dog? Does it fit him? Probably the wife's dog. Why is he walking the wife's dog? Because he's in trouble. There's stories everywhere. Just watch. Just look, listen.
People are your best inspiration.
That has happened, Rich.
And you don't even have to know them. You just have to observe them.
Yeah.
And if
Rich
you
is all
don't
where
know
you
them,
leave the ladder.
if you don't know them, you can fill in the blanks yourself from your own imagination.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like I said, does the guy fit the dog that he's walking? Does it look right? If it doesn't look right, why doesn't it look right? And these aren't what it really is. It's your idea. You have an idea of why it doesn't look right, or why does that short guy drive that tall truck?
Compensating.
Yeah.
Could be.
Carla and I were sitting in a restaurant once having a meal, and we see these. Okay, one person comes in and they sit down. Another person comes in with a briefcase.
I love it.
Oh my goodness, Graham.
There's the new Beowulf spinoff.
Yeah.
And they have maybe half a cup of coffee. And the person who brought the briefcase in gets up and leaves. And about 5, the other person finishes their coffee, picks up the briefcase and leaves with the briefcase. And we look at each other and go, we've just seen a drop.
Yep.
And if it's not, it's going to be in the story.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you can start contemplating of what? Was that drugs? Was it money?
Exactly.
Was it something mundane? Was it just, a ploy to get somebody to quit following a person? Was it, you can run all kinds of different ways with that.
Oh yeah. I've used that in spy stories. And somebody sits on a park bench, leaves a newspaper. Half an hour later, another person comes to the park bench, picks up the newspaper.
Right.
There's something in the newspaper, whether it's a note
Yeah, you
or
can write all kinds
microfilm or
of
whatever.
Yeah.
Or then again, it could be 2 people walking through an airport, very quickly exchange possession of identical briefcases.
Yeah.
Just what can you do with this premise? Is this going to be a story about Gerald the giraffe and the Spanish giraffe and his girlfriend Zelda the zebra, or what?
Right.
It's Zebra Capulet.
Whoa.
I'm taking my cues from Grant there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's like in Vacation, Beth and Hill have to talk to a CI, but they're being followed and they don't want this person to see it. So they sit kind of beside him on a park bench and do a little canoodling. And the guy, I had to update it because at first I had him pull out a transistor radio and play with it. And I'm like, no, he needs to pull out his cell phone.
Yep.
And then after they get their information, Beth and Hill had just gotten some food at a hot dog stand. They just carelessly toss the napkin down on the bench and leave. And when their little tail follows them along, the guy puts his cell phone up, picks up the napkin, and counts the money.
Yeah.
And these days, you could actually go a step further, and somebody leave what looks like a credit card, disguised inside a napkin, inside a newspaper, whatever.
Right.
The contact walks by with an RF reader, scans the card without getting within 6 feet of it,
Right.
Yep.
keeps walking because the card is now erased. That's very
Yeah.
Mission Impossible sort
It
of
is, but it's
I
also
actually know
technology,
that
but
they've done that on
Yeah.
Leverage.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
And the thing is, when you write stuff like that, whether it's spy stuff or police procedural sort of thing,
uh
there's tons of knowledge. I know too many writers who they think research is watching the movie the second time.
Yeah, that's
You
Yeah.
know, and especially when you're doing things with law enforcement, it is you will win a lot of friends in law enforcement if you do not follow TV or movie fare. And actually, this is something I tell people: if you want to know what police work is like, contact your local police department.
oh heck
If
yeah.
if you want to find out how brain surgery works, try to get a hold of a brain surgeon. Because
Yeah.
people, yeah, there we go, or
There you
get a
go.
really great book like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
people love to talk about what they do. Look at us.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
oh,
Well, even
You
you were
won't
talking,
shut up about it.
exactly.
you were talking police
I
procedure.
feel targeted now.
Even one of the things that I've heard with writing factual stuff in your books is don't follow these shows like NCIS where Abby has this
no.
mass spectrometer. That
Yeah.
doesn't you don't get a result in 24 hours. You get a result in like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From machines like that. They do
Mhm.
that for cinematic value. Like in 30 minutes, you're not going to figure out who your killer is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to take 30 days sometimes, or 30
Or,
years sometimes.
CCTV footage. You
Yeah.
don't have a magic program that can enhance and zoom down to the macroscopic
No,
level.
Yeah.
Well,
I always
all
love
fun.
that because if you
Yeah.
really did do that with that film,
You get a
get 'em-
pixel.
yeah,
You
big
get a
Yeah.
pixel. That's all. Just one
Yeah.
great big pixel.
Right.
it would make
I
the
guess-
Zapruder film look like high def.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, am I so different from anybody? Because I love NCIS. I love all those movies,
I
but
do too, yeah.
that's fiction.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't
is.
believe
Yeah.
in I mean, it's solved in 30 minutes because
Yeah.
It's fiction.
the
Yeah,
show's only an hour long.
Well,
I
that's one of
just-
the things.
I just thought of something that Carl can relate to. Now, you do geocaching and you do your Munsies, right?
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Now, what's to keep secret information from being put in one of those scan codes that you get with a Munsie,
Nothing.
No.
or
Mhm.
a thumb drive in a geocache?
Right. Right.
There.
Write it down, Dan. Write it down.
Yeah.
Hey, no. I don't have to. I'm giving it away for free. It's not going to do me any benefit.
I don't.
Well,
I
you were
don't
talking. You were
I
talking
don't have
about
any on
doing your.
right now, but there was a little tag. It looks like a dog tag you hang on your dog or cat,
Mhm.
and you can actually encode information in those that you just put your phone up to it, and it will transfer that information to your phone.
Oh
Or
yeah.
control a function in your phone.
Now, imagine a dead drop where
Oh yeah.
the person with the information walks their dog with one of those collars through a park. The
Mhm.
person that's going to get the information is on a bench and reads it with an RF reader from 20
Yeah.
feet away.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Sure.
Exactly.
I'm sure
Hey.
that's out of the limits of an RF reader. I
Right,
mean,
but for fiction, it works.
but
Yeah.
yeah, for fiction, you can
Just
have the
close enough to
James
real.
Bond RF reader that can read things on the other side of the planet. But you know,
Right.
You know those
that's-
big things in the grocery store that keep you from walking out with stuff?
Mhm.
hmm
That's what those
exactly
are.
what they're doing.
that's
Yeah,
the limit of an RF
exactly,
reader
yeah.
right there. Yeah.
Well, of course,
Yeah.
a thing I heard was that by the time, like in terms of technology, especially with spy stuff, by the time we've heard about it,
Oh yeah.
the next generation's already coming off the
Yep,
assembly
they've already
line.
got it in the works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Things can be worked out, Grant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Grant,
Yeah.
just reach out to whoever you're thinking would be best for it, and
Yeah.
or all of the people that you're thinking would be best
Oh
for it.
yeah.
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 Serious.
No, we were
Where I
talking
come
about.
from, we call that porch sitting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kind of what we're
Yeah.
doing tonight, kind of throwing ideas
Yeah.
around and thoughts and advice. So
We were
yeah.
talking about doing our research and people loving to talk about their job. When we were working on Woodstock, it's situated on an abandoned airfield. And at that time, we had a public airport in Danville. It's private now. But I went out there and I talked to the manager, and he's like, "Why do you?" I said, "I'd like to know things like how long your airways are, what exactly are they made of?" And he's like, "Why you want to do this?" I said, "Because I'm writing a book, and I'm going to have an airport in it very similar to this one." And he's like, "Oh, really?"
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah. I think I was out of there 2 hours later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, because people
Yeah.
love to talk about
Yeah.
their jobs.
I
Mhm.
think
how-
want to make sure we get it right.
Yes.
I talked to one of my local police about something once, and he was in charge of like their version of CSI, and he
Mhm.
said that's the problem. The
Oh.
public, we were talking. Donna was talking about, everybody thinks you can solve a crime in 30 minutes, regardless of what it is. They've got all the machines in the world, and every crime scene has viable fingerprints.
Yes.
Total DNA, and is awash in semen, is how he described it.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
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 In
In
reality,
that way.
it's not.
No. I think
No,
statistically, the police don't solve about 2/3 of the crimes.
That
Oh,
might
yeah.
that might apply to rental limos at a
That's true.
Yeah.
If we can get more rental limo crimes, we might stand a better chance.
Yeah. Although down at SilCon there was a dude who specialized in serial killers.
oh
I'm sorry, I went to his talk. I think he's a bit of an idiot. Somebody asked him,
Don't
"Is
hold
it
back.
is it true that there's still 300 serial killers at any time across the country?" And he's like, "Oh no! Now thanks to DNA and all that stuff, there's only probably about 50 at a time." And I'm sitting here thinking,
You're an idiot.
yeah,
really.
if he's an organized serial killer, he's smart enough to get around all that
Right.
forensic stuff.
hmm
I mean, I know how to get around that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I've always said this.
you know,
that half the people in prison, if they would use their brain for good,
yeah,
do you
Oh, yeah.
know what this world could be like?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like even when they're in prison, they're making shanks and they're figuring out how to get out, and they're like, use that for good, would you? Like, you are a genius. I never would have thought of using a toothbrush. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
You're
yeah,
MacGyver for a
a chicken bone. Yeah.
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 Well, 9 times out of
MacGyver could
10,
escape anything with a paperclip,
And duct tape.
Chewing gum.
exactly.
one chewing gum wrapper,
Yeah.
and some.
Practice, Grant.
Oopsie froze.
No, didn't freeze. My brain froze.
Oh.
I was gonna had me worried for a moment.
I was trying to think of what he could pick up in the treads of his tennis shoes.
Oh, all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
yeah, it
really?
depends on where he's been walking.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
A couple of garnets, a ruby, the Taj Mahal, just whatever.
Yeah.
It moves at the speed of plot, folks. Don't
That's
worry.
right. That's
Well,
right.
that's like 9 out of 10 serial killers are not caught because of, I'm sorry, good police work, forensics. They're caught because they think they're so freaking smart
Mhm.
that they taunt the police
Mhm.
until the police can pick up a clue and then go to
Yeah,
forensics.
because they want their
Yep.
15 minutes of fame.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why
And Grant,
yeah.
what makes you think I'm not?
Grant, she won't let me in her backyard. Just saying. Um,
Well,
No,
if
yeah.
you leave the shovel at home, she might.
I thought she'd share, but anyway.
I don't need a shovel. I have other means.
Yeah, who needs a shovel?
Yeah.
I've got 68 acres of farmland and a backhoe.
There
See,
you
that's
go.
what I always say. Like, I have land, a backhoe, and alibis. Like, don't even.
Mama's
try.
roses look really good this year.
But they are an
Yeah.
endangered rare rose. Did you see
Yes,
that?
exactly.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Exactly.
They're
And
they're
they
all
want stuff
endangered
that's rare.
species, so you can't dig them up.
There are
No.
several pig farms in this area of Illinois.
Don't
Yep.
listen to them, folks. They're okay.
We're-
Buy their books.
Writers, it's fine.
Buy their books. They're okay.
All right.
Yeah, we
Continue
spin a
that.
good yarn. That's why you should buy our books.
Yes.
Yeah. We've been going an hour and a half. That's a
Yeah,
while.
good.
Usually you cut us off in an hour.
Well, usually we wind down. We didn't seem to wind down today.
We've been on the air for a while.
Yeah. So
We
we'll
had-
try this. We'll try ending the show. How about that?
What?
Yeah. You got something else you want to talk about?
If we have to.
Okay. Well, I'm practicing my outro stuff. So let's try this.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Don't forget to hit the
See ya.
end program button.
Yeah, we got to do the
And don't
intro.
forget to like, share, and subscribe this show, people.
Yes,
if you've enjoyed any part of it or
subscribe,
plan to in
tell
the
your
future.
Friends. Get 'em
And
all.
don't forget to buy all of our books.
Yes.
Lulu.com.
Yes. Everywhere.